Hello friends, welcome to this YouTube video program. Friends, today we'll discuss about the concept of a teaching strategy, teaching method and teaching technique. Friends, as a student of education, as a teacher of education, or as a teacher, educator, or as a researcher in education, we many a time, quite often, we get confused about the very concept of a strategy, method, and technique. And many a time, we use these concept, these terms as synonymous. Means instead of using teaching technique, we use teaching method, and instead of using teaching method, we use the term teaching technique. So, friends, as a practitioner, we should understand. We should clear about the connotation and the very meaning and the very concept of these three terms that we use in the process of teaching and learning. So, friends, let us try to understand what is a strategy, what is a method, and what is a technique. So, let me to first define teaching strategy. As per the definition of Stone and Morris 2010, teaching strategy is a generalized plan for a lesson which includes structure, instructional objectives, methods, techniques, assessment strategies, and an outline of planned tactics necessary to implement the strategies. So, friends, try to understand. You see, here the definition given by Stone and Morris, you see, this definition is a very complex definition, and you can also say that this is complex as well as a complete definition. Complete definition means you see, teaching strategy is a generalized plan for a lesson which includes structure. You see, whenever we do any activity, whenever we plan for any action, especially to teach a particular chapter, you can say a particular unit or a particular theme, maybe in any subject which is in the curriculum. So you prepare a structure first, okay, that for teaching that chapter, how many lessons or how many classes you will be requiring, you will take how many classes, okay. So you have to prepare a complete plan that what portion of the content will be completed in the first lesson, then in the second lesson, and the third lesson, and the fourth lesson. Let by taking 4 lessons, you have to complete a complete chapter, a complete unit, okay. So you have to structureize it, you have to make a proper plan of it. Then second, you see, yesterday we have discussed about the instructional objectives, okay. How to state the instructional objectives and what is the concept of an instructional objective, okay. So here you see, before teaching any topic, any lesson, as a teacher, first you are stating certain instructional objectives, and that should be stated as per the behavioral terms and by using certain action verb as per the Bloom's taxonomy of instructional objectives. And you can take the objectives from from three different objective areas or the domains, that is the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So we are not going to detail about this, as already we have discussed. But here what I mean to say, the topic or the theme that you will teach. So first of all, you have to make a proper structure of it. Then after making the proper structure, you have to frame certain instructional objectives to a particular lesson, okay. So what means, what objectives are in your mind and what objectives you supposed to achieve, you supposed to attain after completion of this task, that also include in a strategy. Then definitely you can say, whenever you are teaching, you are using certain method, okay, certain method. So here also, in a teaching strategy, method is also included. Then definitely certain techniques, you will be use certain techniques. Further we will be discussing in this program that what is the method and what is the technique. So here I mean to say that in a strategy, first you have to prepare a detailed structure, detailed plan, a detailed implementation plan, you can say. Then you have to state the instructional objectives, because without instructional objectives there is no teaching. So you cannot plan for a teaching learning process without an instructional objective. So it also include in a teaching strategy, then method, then techniques. Then whenever you are teaching, at the same time you are also doing certain assessment. Okay, so assessment, it may be formative in nature or it may be summative in nature, or mostly in the present, as per the constructivist approach of teaching and learning process is concerned, you see, we have integrated different assessment techniques with the teaching learning process. So whenever there is teaching, whenever there is learning, there is assessment. So here assessment enhance learning. Okay, so assessment will help the learner for enhancing their learning abilities. So whenever they will be learning more and more things, at the same time they will be assessing themselves also. So assessment is considered as learning tool, you can say. This is not just to know the progress of the students. Rather, by using the assessment technique, the students will go forward. Students will know many new things. They will engage themselves in the process of learning. So friends, here also when we talk about teaching strategy, then definitely assessment, the assessment technique that you will use, that is also the part of the broad teaching strategy. Then when you can say this is a detailed plan of action. So what you want to do, how you will teach, what method you will use, how you will assess the things, how you will assess the performance of the students. Okay, how you will engage the students, and what will be the teacher's role, what will be the student's role. Okay, so what are the different activities you supposed to do. So when we combine all these things, then we can say that this is just strategy. Okay, so strategy, you can say it is a macro in nature, means it's a very broad in nature. You cannot you can say you can say you cannot achieve, or you cannot teach the students without preparing a proper plan or proper strategy. So friends, now let us try to specifically discuss teaching strategy. We can say that when you try to achieve some objectives by any method, it becomes a strategy. So you see, we have certain objectives in our mind, and as per the objectives we use certain methods, and definitely that method and objectives is our strategy. That is our plan of action, because we have planned it systematically, scientifically. We have planned it, and we are implementing that plan in the teaching learning process. Then we can say strategy is actually a combination of different methods and techniques. I have already said that you can use different methods, you can use different techniques in a strategy. For example, you can say lecture or discussion or question answer method can never be used separately. So when you are using a lecture method or a discussion method, or when you are using lecture or discussion method, we are also using the question answer method. So you cannot say that lecture method is complete without asking a question, without doing certain discussion. Okay, so that's why in a strategy all the methods and techniques are included. Then I have already said that strategy is a very macro approach. Okay, it is a very large approach. It is a very you can say a complete approach. And as we consider that teaching learning process is a very systematic work, is a very scientific work, and you can say this is also a art. So when we talk about strategy, means we are clarifying, we are specifying, we are providing a direction about our action, that how we will proceed in the beginning, what we will do during the teaching learning process, then what you will do after the teaching learning process. So that's why you can say this is a very systematic process, and we proceed by following a definite system. In a strategy, that also talk about for creating a type of conducive teaching learning environment in the class. So that is also part of a teaching strategy. So you can only apply or implement you can say a systematic strategy, a well planned strategy, only when if you are able to establish, able to create a type of conducive learning environment. So that's why creating a situation, creating a conducive learning environment in the classroom is also a part of a teaching strategy. Then further we can say that behavior of students and teachers and their mutual relationship you have to establish. You see, during the teaching learning process, you see how the students will interact with the students, how the teacher will interact with the students, how you can measure, assess, observe the behavior of the students. So friends, when we talk about a strategy, it includes everything in the teaching learning process. It is a very broad plan, you can say. It is a very minute plan. So minute to minute activities, what you supposed to do in the process of teaching and learning, that you have to plan it out, that you have to structure it. Okay. Then friends, now let us try to understand that what is a teaching method. Okay. You see, teaching method is limited to the effective presentation of a subject method. So when we talk about a teaching method, it is associated with a subject matter. It is associated with a topic, with certain content, because we have to teach that content, we have to deal that content, we have to implement that content by using certain method. Okay. And specifically the method may be what you use, generally we use in the teaching learning process. That may be a lecture, may be a discussion, maybe narration come discussion, maybe narration come demonstration, maybe problem solving, maybe inductive method, maybe deductive method, maybe project method, maybe storytelling or other methods also. Okay. So these are the broad methods that we use across the subject. And then you see, for teaching language we use different method. For teaching you can say social science, we use different method. For teaching science and mathematics, we use different method. Okay. And you can say that in a method you also use certain technique. And earlier what I was telling that when you are talking about a strategy, it is very macro approach because it includes many things. But when we talk about a teaching method, it is a very micro approach because in a very systematic way you are touching a content, you are explaining a content. Okay. You are presenting a content. Okay. You are illustrating certain things. You are providing a lecture, you are delivering a lecture, and during the lecture you are also doing certain activities. Okay. So that's why it is a very micro approach, because for teaching certain content you are supposed to use certain method. So method is directly linked with the you can say the content. And the teaching methods works under a teaching strategy. I have already said that teaching strategy is a macro approach, it is a detailed plan, it is a detailed structure. Okay. So in that structure, in that detailed plan, in that strategy, teaching strategy, you have to include certain method. Okay. To teach a particular chapter or to teach a particular you can say unit, you may use many method. Let in the first lesson you are using one method, in the other method you may use another method. So that's why strategy includes method, and you have to contextualize. So for taking into consideration of the nature of the content, that what method should be used to teach what lesson. Okay. And further we can say that teaching method fulfills the concept of teaching as an art. So we consider that teaching as an art. So when we talk about teaching strategy, we consider that teaching as a science, because systematically you are preparing a proper plan of it. And when we talk about a teaching method, we say that teaching you can say this is an art, because we are doing the things, we are implementing a content, we are discussing a content by using certain skills. Okay. That skill may be question answer, that skill may be a very good you can say illustration, or by doing a peer and group discussion. Okay. So that's why you can say teaching method is an art. Then next we'll discuss that the concept of a teaching technique. Okay. During the discussion of strategy and method, we have also touched the concept of a teaching technique. Still again we will discuss. You see, teaching techniques are used for effective presentation of a subject matter. So here you see we use a teaching method for presentation of the content subject matter. At the same time we also use teaching technique, different teaching techniques to for presenting the subject matter. So here, it may be a method, or it may be a technique, teaching technique. So both are linked with, both are associated with the content. Okay, the content that you supposed to teach to the students. Okay, so that's why it is related to the presentation of the subject matter. And the teaching techniques are, you can say, they may be questioning. You see, without asking a question you cannot teach. You have to, for initiating a discussion, it may be lecture, it may be narration come discussion, for teaching the students, to dealing the students. So definitely you will be asking certain questions. So questioning, discussion, narration, you will be narrating certain things, then you have to demonstrate certain thing, demonstrating, or to do a type of demonstration, then illustration. Okay, illustration with suitable examples. So many a time, you see, you will be providing certain examples. So when you are providing certain examples, you can say that that illustration, that example, you are using certain technique. Then you can say storytelling. Many a time for teaching social science, teaching specifically to teaching history, you are using a storytelling method, and you might be using a storytelling technique also. Then interviewing the students, or using the technique of interview, technique of observation. So without observation in a classroom you cannot teach. As a teacher, you have to use the technique of observation, you have to use the technique of interview, interaction, then brainstorming. You have to ask certain brainstorming question to the students. Then peer and group discussion, role play, etc. So friends, you see, here certain things we have discussed in the methods, and certain things we have discussed in the technique. But you see, certain common things are there. We are using, just like discussion, we use discussion as a method, and we use discussion as a technique. So friends, you try to understand the techniques are included in a method, and many a time method is some extent broad than a technique. In a method you may be use many techniques. Okay, so to teach a lesson, in a strategy, you have prepared a structure, you have prepared your plan of action. Then with that plan of action, you are using a particular method to teach a particular lesson, and in that method you are using many techniques. As example, let you are using lecture method, and in the lecture method you are asking the questions, you are doing a small demonstration, you are doing certain activities, you are doing certain illustration, you are doing certain role play. So here you see, role play may be used as a method, and that can also be used as a technique. So when the major focus of your content is on a method, if major focus is on a role play, then under role play you can use certain, you can say, certain technique. Just like storytelling can be used under role play can be used under a lecture method. And let you are using a project method, in a project method for teaching. In the last video we have discussed, for teaching market, we have the concept of market. There are three types of market. There is the shopping mall, there is the weekly market, and there is the Gramin Hart, neighborhood shop. So to teach the concept of market, what you are using the broad method, that is the project. So under that project, so what you are doing, you are using interview technique, you are using observation technique. Here you see the students will observe certain things, you are using the questioning technique, you are using writing a report, that is also another technique. And you are also using the students to present the things that they have observed in the field, in different types of markets. In the classroom they are presenting it in front of the students. So friends, here also they are using a technique to present before the students. So under the method of project, under the project method, they are using many techniques. Under the lecture method, they are also using many techniques. So here you see, there will be one broad method, and under that broad method many techniques can be used, okay, to teach a lesson. Then friends, we can say that just like a method, we can also say that teaching technique is also a very micro approach. Okay, this is not a very macro approach, because we are using many techniques in a method. Teaching techniques works under a teaching method for fulfilling the method, for realizing teaching as an art. We use many techniques. uh, so friends, you see, these three concepts, teaching strategy, teaching method, and teaching technique, many a time it creates certain confusion among the mind of the students, who is synonymously or interchangeably use that. We say that we are using a teaching technique or teaching method. So as a student of education, you should understand that there is this, you can say, conceptual difference in understanding of these three concepts. But you see, techniques are included in a method is included in a strategy. Without technique, method is not be fulfilled, and without using the method, strategy cannot be fulfilled. So whenever we talk about a teaching strategy, definitely certain method and techniques are included in it. So we can say that these three concepts are interlinked with each other. One fulfills the purpose of other. Objectives fulfills the purpose of method, and method fulfills the purpose of strategy. So that's why try to understand that a strategy that covers each and everything, every action, every activities. This is the detailed plan of action. Okay, and strategy is not a very micro. It based upon a macro approach. Okay, and under a strategy you can use many methods so far as the nature of content is concerned. And even if in a chapter many topics are there, many content points are there, you cannot say that to teach a particular content point you have to for teaching all the content point under a chapter, under a unit, you have to use only one method. You may use many method. Okay, but in a particular content point, then one will be the leading method, one will be the focused method. Okay, and that method may change for another content point, for another lesson, another class. But in a particular class there will be a dominance of a method. Okay, and under that method you will be using certain technique. Okay, just like we have said that in a lecture method you are using question answer technique, role play as a technique, demonstration as a technique. Okay, and every lesson assessment is included in it. So whenever you are teaching, you are also observing certain things. So observation is a technique. So whenever you are teaching, you are also interacting with the students. So you are doing certain, you are using certain techniques for assessing the performance and assessing the mastery of the students, the engagement of the students. So friends, you should be very clear about these three concepts: strategy, method, and technique, so that you can use it properly in the teaching learning process. Then accordingly you can plan better your teaching. So friends, in our next session we will discuss any other aspect of teaching learning process, as well as different aspects for conducting our research in education. Thank you.